You have people that are working 2, 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Um, uh, and not even adjusting for inflation. I mean, things cost a hell of a lot more, and so it's like there are the tale of two economies here, and it gets into that intellectualism. Depending, you don't want to think or don't understand the data, so whatever your echo chamber is, if it's Donald Trump, if it's Bernie Sanders, the economy's either great or we're about to enter a depression and we're screwed. And so we have to find ways of talking about issues in a way that people will stay engaged and listen. So we're going to try it out here. Okay, we're going to test a few of them out. All right, it's your first interview, which I'm so happy for. Right,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if you picked us. I just was like, dude, you're coming on Monday, so you weren't going to say no. But I was like, all right. So there was something that you talked about in your story, and I remember when you were reading, I didn't even know this until I read your reasoning and why you wanted to run for office. It was after we both moved away, and you're talking about your son, right, was in the NICU,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
my daughter was in a NICU. Eleanor was in a NICU for about 2.5 days. Now, mind you, it was like the most minimal, like this nasal cannula oxygen. She aspirated a little meconium, before she was born, and I remember my wife is a nurse. I'm self-employed, so basically her insurance is my insurance.
Hmm.
And so here's a nurse worked for a hospital. You'd think amazing insurance, right? And we had like an $8,000, almost $10,000 bill. We have insurance,
Yeah.
right? And that's what
Hmm.
we had to pay. And now, mind you, my wife, in her growing frustration, where she worked in a NICU herself, she always
Yeah, I was
laughed
gonna
the
say
the
she.
irony of a NICU nurse had a baby in the NICU, but she's like, we'd have people come in and they were drug addicts. They'd have like 7 kids already. They would, have some kids taken away to CPS. And why is it that we work our asses off? She works for a hospital. We paid 10 G's for our daughter to be born, and mind you, a minimal, right? But the people who are on the Medicaid system and Medicare. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need to have these safety nets, but when you have people who are drug addicts having babies literally because of their no prenatal care, drug use, being on vents for like a month or so because they're premature, racking up $200,000-300,000 in bill that we get billed as taxpayers, they don't pay a dime. And we had she said there was a doctor at her hospital that didn't marry his girlfriend solely because he could deliver her because she was on Medicaid, so he could get paid to deliver his own baby. And I look at that going,
Well, in
it's
his
a
defense,
problem, right?
though, I mean, he's not doing anything wrong. It's the system that's
It's the
broken.
system, right?
Sure, I mean, you'd be a fool. Oh, let me just voluntarily give up some money, or I can follow the rules
You're
and
right. It
take
is the
advantage.
system. But
You
the
know.
question I have for you, and this is putting the candidate hat on, so we're gonna put the
Hmm.
friend hat off for a second. But it's like, okay, so when you look at healthcare, because I know healthcare is a big thing with you, that's the thing where I feel unheard. I feel that being a hardworking middle class person, I feel like I don't make enough money for Republicans to care about me, but I feel like I'm not poor enough for Democrats to care about me. No one ever does anything that's going to help us in our health care out. My daughter has asthma as a result of some of her stuff when she was in NICU, and our insurance company literally goes, "No, we're not going to pay for the medication. Never mind that it works. Never mind that every time you've taken her off of it, she has asthma attacks again." And it's like, why is nobody talking about us? And so I know healthcare is a big thing with yours. Help me understand like what your view of healthcare is, and maybe like what some of your ideas are for, hey, what is it that we can maybe do to fix some of these things?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a complex issue, but just to kind of piggyback off of what you said a little bit. I mean, when my daughter was born almost 6 months ago, she didn't have a NICU stay, but we did spend like 2 days in the hospital, and it. I think our bill's probably $7,000-8,000, and we have insurance. I mean, I have state employees, Blue Cross Blue Shield here in North Carolina, and it's pretty miserable. I mean, I had an allergic reaction. Just had broke out in hives all over my body several years ago now, and I went to the doctor. They said they didn't know what it was. They were like, "Did you eat something different? Did you do this, that kind of thing?" And so they had no idea. So they sent me to a dermatologist. It took a while to get into the dermatologist. So I'm sitting here not sleeping, scratching my whole body like 24/7. And they say, "Oh, well, just this steroid spray, this should really clear it up for you, right?" And so I go to CVS, my pharmacy, and they say, "Oh, we tried to call you. Uh, that's going to be $1,200 for this
Jeez.
tiny little bottle, right?
Man.
And I was
One
like,
bottle. Is there like gold in there? I mean,
I know.
was there like
That's
little
what I
tiny
said.
nano doctors that were going to solve it? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know,
man,
but when they
twelve
said
hundred
that,
dollars.
my first reaction, I probably can't say on air, but it's one of those things that I just was like, well, I obviously can't afford that. And they were like, well, you can maybe get some coupons. You could maybe bring it down to like 300, 250, something like that.
That's a
So
mortgage payment.
I
Come
know,
on,
it's
just
I
give me a
know,
break.
I know. So, I go home very distraught. I'm like, I apparently I'm going to die from hives. Just never going to have these go away. And my wife, the great loving person that she is, she's calling around asking people, do you have any of this Corda spray stuff? And one of her teacher friends said, yeah, I've got some.
Hmm.
And she said she would give me a bottle, a month's supply of it. And my wife, Shelly, she said, hey, what do I owe you? And she was like, don't worry about it. I get 3 of these at a time for $20. And she has TRICARE, which, I mean, I realize that everybody thinks that socialized medicine is a dirty word, but I mean, uh, why is there that big of a difference pharmaceutically speaking there? And so, I mean, honestly, again, I don't know what the perfect answer is, but what I do know is that every other major modern industrialized country in the world has some form of universal health care that is socialized in at least some way. If not at least moving in a public option direction in some ways. I guess Netherlands is a little bit more of a conservative approach to it, but I mean, their conservative approach was basically Obamacare here, and so it certainly is no socialistic takeover overall. But that if the rest of the world's doing it, why the heck can't we do it? I mean, they say we can't afford it. Well, how do these other countries do it?
Well, a perfect example was so there's 2 competing bills. It was an attempt to bring down prescription drug prices. So the Democrat one that passed the House basically was like, wait a minute, we can do this really easy. So the reason why on TRICARE it was so cheaper is because my father, he was a chief resource officer of a healthcare system. He was on an earlier show talking about like these pharmaceutical companies, device manufacturers, they can literally shop around the different hospitals, different regions. They can charge whatever it is they want. They can change the pricing depending on how many people you have coming through. They change it, right? And so the bill was basically, to lower prices very quickly. You have to basically, we're going to have the same contracted price process that you have for Medicare, Medicaid, and TRICARE. So basically, we would be paying insurance companies would be paying the same exact price as TRICARE and Medicare. You know what the pharmaceutical company said? And of course, they were sponsoring the Republican bill. They go, yeah, so what's going to happen is that people are going to die. We're going to come out with 3 less drugs a year because of the money that we're going to be losing. And so really, you do that, people are going to die. That to me is what is wrong with our system. And to me, it's the most un-American thing when we have corporations that literally made billions off of the backs of our country.
Forget un-American.
Yeah,
it's
sociopathic. They're willing to hold a gun to the head of the country. Go, don't make me do this. Don't make me do it. Not because what they're saying is true, is because they're going to make less money for their stockholders, less money for their board, the billions and bonuses they pay out. Where is our government to go? That's messed up, guys. Like, we should not allow this. And yet, what happened? The Senate Republicans were able to shoot it down, and they allow our country to be held hostage by the. I mean, I don't understand how you make America great again when you allow companies to hold the American people hostage for greed.